Hey everyone, it's Triple Mango Threat, and today we're talking about how to build a mana base in Magic the Gathering. Let's jump right into it. So in order to build a mana base, we need ways to make mana, and lands are a perfect way to do that. Now in order to know how many lands we need, that will take some explaining. Here I have a graph that shows us how many lands we need to consistently cast our spells. This meaning if the spell is 6 mana, we should at least cast it on turn 6, same for 4 mana on turn 4. So the graph shows that Drowner of Hope is 5C, C meaning color. So this could represent 5 green, 5 blue, whatever color we're needing. If we want to cast Drowner of Hope by turn 6, we will need 14 sources of mana. Through the Breach is 4C, which requires 15 colors of mana to be able to cast it on turn 5. Remember, this can replace any card with 4 generic mana and whatever color of mana. The C is a stand-in for whatever color of mana is supposed to be there. And the last card I'm going to give an example of is Goblin Guide. For 1 color of mana, we need 23 sources of mana to be able to cast that on turn 1. So now that we understand how the graph works, let's dive a little bit deeper into what would happen if we cast something with more than just 1 color. If we wanted to cast Amara Soul of the Accord, we see that it's a green and white mana. Well, on the graph, it doesn't show us what to do when this happens. So what we need to do is find the 1C on the graph and CC. Now normally we would need 21 sources of 1 color of mana for 1C, and 33 sources of 1 color of mana for CC. So when we add another color, we have to have the other color involved in our deck as well. So we'll need to provide white and green mana for Amara. Instead of them both being 21 sources of green and white mana, it's recommended that we increase it by 1 for each. So now we're going to have 22 sources of green and 22 sources of white to be able to cast Amara on turn 2 consistently, as well as 34 sources that can produce green or white mana. I'll do 2 more examples just in case this is too much information at once. You can skip to this time code to move on with the rest of the video if you understand this method. When it comes to Ancient Excavation, which is 2 blue black, we need to look on the graph for 3C and 2CC, so we have Collected Company and Damnation to compare to. All we do here is add 1 number of each color from Collected Company's stats, so 18 sources of blue mana and 18 sources of black mana. Then we add Damnation stats, plus 1 for the mana that can produce blue and or black, so 27 would be the number we should shoot for. And our last example is Niv Mizzet Parun, so let's find 3 CCC on the graph. 3 CCC needs 28 sources of colored mana to be able to cast it on turn 6. So we'll add 1 to 28, which is 29, so we'll need 29 sources of red mana and 29 sources of blue mana. When it comes to unusual mana costs like Delve, the mana cost may not actually be what the card says it is. So Treasure Cruise is a 7 blue spell, but often we don't cast it for 8 mana, so whatever you usually cast it for, treat it as though it's that mana cost. Treasure Cruise could be a 3 blue spell when you cast it, so we look at the graph, and in order to cast a 3 blue spell, we'll need 17 sources of blue to be able to cast it by turn 4. Now there are percentages to what mana sources actually are. For example, a swamp is a black source, and Watery Grave counts as both a blue and black source. So when it comes to fetch lands, they can also be considered as a full source of mana for whatever color it can fetch. Now what about tap lands? Well, for turn 1, only untapped sources count, so Evolving Wilds, Selesnya Guildgate, or Sunpetal Grove won't help you cast Llanowar Elves on turn 1. For turn 2 onward, all sources are going to count. As long as you don't have an insane number of tap lands, you should have consistency in your mana base. Now what about Mana Dorks? These would be considered half a colored source, only because these creatures can be destroyed and it's a possibility we'll lose them to removal or even a board wipe. We need to be careful when it comes to claiming drawing cards to count as a mana source. Drawing cards can lead into more lands, sure, but we can't draw cards without mana. While there is a small percentage of drawing cards counting as a source of mana, I would not recommend relying on card draw to dig you out of this greedy grave. Scrying can also count as a mana source, but again, like card draw, it's a small percentage. If you're interested in learning more about your mana base, I highly recommend Frank Karsten's article on it. I'll have it linked in the description down below. You can become a patron and start seeing your name at the end of these videos and get a free exclusive Ultra Sleeve each month. You can also get 5% off your Ultra Sleeve order when you use the code Triple Mango Threat. Be sure to comment down below and subscribe for more Mango content. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.